Start spreading the news. I'm leaving today. I wanna be a part of it. New York, New York. And these vagabond shoes are longing to stray right through the very heart of it. New York, New York.
Hey Charlie, how are you? Come on through. Hey man, I'm so sorry. We totally did not anticipate
New York traffic.
The madness of how I thought it would have died down by now.
Right.
How you doing, Charlie? Danny Van
Danny, nice to meet you.
That's Andy up there.
Andy, good to meet you.
Andy's a co-host of the show.
Okay.
And thanks for meeting us.
No problem. Are we on air right now?
Yeah, we're on air. We're good to go.
Okay.
We're just gonna dive right into it because
Okay.
I know we've been keeping you a while. So
no problem.
So yeah, once again, thanks for joining us, and I'm really excited to learn a little bit more about. Is it APOPO? Is that how we?
It's a APOPO.
APOPO. Okay, I figured
Yeah. It's a tough one to pronounce.
Can you pronounce it?
I didn't do it right for my first couple of weeks on the job, so don't worry about it.
So what's it stand for? What's the?
It's basically a Dutch acronym for Anti-Personnel Landmine Device Research Organization. So
cool.
It's something along those lines.
How did you get involved with them?
So I was actually between 2005 and 2007. I was a Peace Corps volunteer in Niger, West Africa, and so always, kept Africa and development work close to my heart. I'd gone to business school, was a consultant in DC, and just sort of sick of the grind there, looking to do something more interesting, and just applied to APOPO. I mean, I actually had Googled the most innovative nonprofits they had come up, and they had this development manager position, a lot of which is, doing government, managing government contracts, trying to get new business, et cetera, which I had some experience in the past with from my past jobs. So It was a good mix. They knew I could handle the grind of going out and visiting sites in Tanzania and other crazy countries, but I also sort of knew how government contracts worked and the business development process, et cetera.
Unique opportunity for sure, unique organization.
Definitely.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about what APOPO actually does?
So, our mission is to train rats to save lives, essentially, and we're open to all different sorts of applications. We've been around for about 10 years, but the two that we've really found our sweet spot in are training them to do landmine detection and then training them to detect tuberculosis. We started off doing landmine detection, and the reason around that is our founder was actually he grew up in Belgium, and his family had hosted a lot of African exchange students, and he heard a lot about the landmine crises in their countries and how it was moving too slow, the landmine detection, etc. He actually himself was a rodent liver. He trained rodents, sold them to pet stores, and sort of put together that they're bringing in dogs to do to detect landmines. They're using a lot of bringing in expensive dogs from Europe, from other places. They're using a lot of expensive machinery that's brought in from the West. I bet there's a species of rodent in Africa that can actually be, just as dogs are taught, because they have just as good a sense of smell, they're just as trainable, they're actually cheaper, etc. That could be taught to detect landmines. And so he went about in 1997, started the process. It took a while to get the research proof of concept up there, and then in around 2004, we actually started detecting landmines in Mozambique for the first time. And we're proud to say that the use of mines in the use of rats in Mozambique is one of, gave us a real advantage over much larger landmine clearance organizations, and we became the government's preferred partner. And they're going to declare themselves landmine free this year.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah, and hopefully APOPO is going to get highlighted in a big ceremony. But again, we're a full service landmine operation. There's always a lot of equipment, there's always a lot of facets to it, but ultimately the rats were what made us a lot more efficient than other organizations. So
literally the rats are responsible for saving thousands of lives at this point.
Yeah, when we look at our impact statistics, one of the things we look at is how much total, we look at total landmines taken out of the ground, we look at how many square meters we've cleared, but I think most importantly we look at how many beneficiaries in terms of people that were living under the threat of landmines and no longer do. And APOPO's, almost over the million person mark in that statistic. It's always a bit complicated, whether it's the rats or sometimes it's other facets of our mine clearance operation that clear it. But ultimately, it's all about efficiency, and the rats keep us moving much quicker than we would otherwise if we were not using them. So
yeah, what a perfect combination: a strong sense of smell and then lightweight. Obviously, you don't want to set off any mines, which would be bad.
Yeah, and that's something I've always noticed when I'm telling people about APOPO. I think they're in the back of their mind thinking, "Oh my God, these guys just blow up rats all over the place." But we actually take animal welfare very seriously. We have every single animal welfare clearance, certification you could get. And we've done a project with the Department of Defense before, so we have a lot of them actually are based in the U.S., these animal welfare clearances. I wish I knew all the exact names, but they're all out there. And then, we really spoil the rats. I mean, even when we find, rats can ebb and flow in their performance in terms of how accurate they are with detection. And if we find that a rat, sometimes they just lose performance, we actually just retire them. If they can't be retrained to have high accuracy again, we retire them, and they sort of spend their whole life hanging out, being spoiled, playing with the trainers, eating as many peanuts and avocados as they could possibly desire.
Not a bad life.
Yeah, so it's not a bad life. My guess is they're the most spoiled rodents in the world. And again, that's very important to us because we are all about saving lives, even mainly human lives, but we don't want to lose an animal life in the process. So.
That's good. No, that's definitely a good view to keep in, because you don't want to kind of adopt this attitude where they're like a disposable tool. You want to appreciate them for the animals themselves. How many rats are you guys working with approximately?
So it varies from any given time, and I think I should say the quantity of rats is not really an issue for APOPO. We have the ability to breed a lot more. It's just, do we have the projects to use them in?
Gotcha.
And right now, I believe there's about 60 doing mine action, 40 doing tuberculosis detection.
Wow.
But then there's always a bunch in the process of being trained. And again, some of them aren't. Sometimes they won't meet the training accuracy. Sometimes they just don't have it in them.
Right.
But others are incredible. And what we try to do is, set up a breeding program where we're getting as much as the really good rats who've shown their ability in training ability in detection for a while, to get those genes flowing through our pool as much as possible.
Nice. And you're strictly using Gambian rats, like you're not using any Subway in New York City?
No. I mean, it's possible that you probably could, but the Gambian pouched rat has a lot of advantages for us working in sub-Saharan Africa, and now, we're soon probably going to be moving to Cambodia as well.
Wow.
But, they're resistant to tropical diseases. They're big enough to harness up to do landmine detection, because you need sort of a very controlled gridded process.
Right.
With and so you need to harness them up and put them along basically ropes that zigzag over a field. So you're making sure they detect every single inch of land.
Right.
But yeah, and then they're not. They live for 7 years. They live for 8 years actually, and you can train them in 9 months. So you get a big return on your investment in terms of how long they detect and how long they can save lives.
Yeah, I know with dogs it's super pricey to train them to do basically anything. What's the time and cost involved with rats as opposed to something like a dog, which is more commonly used?
Sure. Right now we say it's about, I think it's about $3,000 per rat, and a dog typically, is about $10,000 to train, and then the upkeep's much higher. And quite frankly, as I said, we have the capacity to breed a lot more rats if we had the projects to do so, and we're pretty sure we could easily get under $1,000 per rat if it was, if we were operating at true capacity in terms of how many rats we're producing for our projects and capabilities of our breeding center. But it is much cheaper, and then even more importantly, rats aren't bond forming, so they can be transferred between trainers, and the rats are very mechanical in how you do them. So you can really train someone with just basically a elementary to middle school education, which is what most of our employees in sub-Saharan Africa are, which is great. It both offers people at that level jobs, which it's not very common, a stable a stable job with a stable paycheck, which is not very common for people with those kinds of degrees in sub-Saharan Africa, but also just makes it so our operations are more sustainable. We're not relying on, as many highly educated folks to get it done. With dogs, with dogs too are very bond forming. So if they, and often, in a landmine detection, dogs will come in with a European trainer, for example, and you have to pay their hazard pay. It's very expensive, and if they leave for whatever reason, sometimes the dog's performance can drop. That's not to say that dogs don't have some advantages over rats, but I think we actually work with a group called the Norwegians People Aid a lot, who uses dogs to do landmine detections, and often we find that if we work together, dogs can add value at times, rats can add value.
Nice.
It's just all sort of about, resources and situations.
Yeah, that's cool. I never thought of the economic impact in some of those countries, which are obviously, can use as much of an economic boost in their demographics as possible. So that's cool. So you hire all locals as trainers for these animals?
Correct. I mean, we have over 98% locally hired staff, and APOPO prides itself on not having a lot of people like me in the U.S. with high admin overhead. Of course, you need some people to engage with donors to get the message out about the organization, but yes, ultimately, almost all of our staff is local, and again, APOPO really takes managing people seriously. I think we treat our employees very well, have relatively very low turnover, and that helps our operations stay quite efficient.
Nice. And now, as far as the tuberculosis thing, that's like amazing to me. I had no idea you can actually smell some diseases, and
sure,
that's the application that I'm assuming you're using. So you can use them for other applications in the same sense. I'm assuming other diseases have.
Like people train dogs for cancer detection.
Yes,
as well.
and that's something that it's in the cards. We're looking to do a initial research experiment where we actually bring in colon cancer samples to our training center laboratory in Morogoro, Tanzania, and there'll be known positives and known negatives, and we'll train the rats on the positives just as we do with tuberculosis detection, and then put them in and then cycle the samples through. There's both positive and negatives, and see how see what their accuracy level is. And if this initial controlled experiment works well, it builds the blocks up for more experience where you're bringing in unknown samples, and then finally, hopefully at some point, an operational system that would not only allow us to save lives, but might actually bring the rats over to the West, which I think is a really cool story. That the global order is technology goes from the West to Africa or to developing countries, but if we were bringing a refined technology from Africa to the U.S., it would kind of flip things on its head, and I think be a very good, climax to the APOPO story. And
that'd be phenomenal.
Potentially, it's too early to say exactly how it would work, but if the rats had a nice niche in, say, colon cancer detection, it could be a really good streams of earned income. Because right now, with TB and landmine action, they're very grant dependent, and it's just the way it is and the economics of the situation. But something like colon cancer, we might be able to set up earned income, which would actually allow us to do more work in sub-Saharan Africa.
Nice.
So that would be sort of the hopes and dreams of the future for APOPO.
I love the fact that rats that are just usually seen as these kind of substandard animals in human culture are now responsible for saving so many lives. It's such a great little kind of twist. Now, I know here in the U.S., the Gambian pouched rats used to be popular as pets for a while, a couple years ago, but then I think there was I think it was monkeypox outbreak or something that kept them from coming through anymore. Now, do you get any resistance as far as moving into the West in that sense? Would that be something you guys can easily overcome?
Well, yeah, we've actually looked into it a little bit. I was thinking of doing a program with rats in zoos in the U.S., and so I know a little bit about this, and it can be done. You need to get all sorts of clearances, but we probably would only need at first 30 or 40 rats to sort of launch a small cancer research experiment than operations in the U.S. So we could take care of it, but yes, it would be a bit of a pain to get it done. But there is some folks. I think the Philadelphia Zoo has a couple of Gambian pouched rats, so you can do it, but it's difficult and it's fraught with fraught with risk. But if we see the potential benefit, I think we can make it happen.
There's like a Florida population too, I think.
Yeah, they're an invasive species in Florida.
Get them.
Yeah, that's
free. It's on the spot.
It'd probably be more of a pain actually than importing them from
really
Tanzania. Yeah, actually it would be, I think, because there's just so much. I think in Florida they're told as soon as you found a Gambian you'd have to
put it down,
euthanize it. Yeah. Just because it is an invasive species, so
that'd be tough.
You'd have to get it. Go through all sorts of paperwork hoops to get that done.
I would call them Squishy and take them home.
Yeah.
See, we're rat lovers. Both Andy and I have rats as pets.
Really?
Too. Yeah. We have rats as pets.
My wife's dream is to actually get a Gambian pouched rat.
Okay,
she keeps trying to persuade me to go through the proper channels. Sometimes illegally, but I'm like, I can't.
So you should get a job with APOPO now,
I should,
you'll be set. He's like, I don't know about that. We don't want
As I say, we keep our admin low,
It's just gonna be Andy and rats. Awesome. Well, it sounds like a really spectacular program. It's so unique. I love it. And of course, as we said, as rat lovers, there's not much to love about the fact that you can use them in this application. And it has so many possibilities, going forward to saving lives. But I love the fact that, so far in such a small amount of time, you've already statistically done so much with them. That's pretty amazing.
You mentioned how quickly you guys can train the rats, or the time length it takes to train the rats. How long does it take to train a person to train the rat?
It's actually quite simple. As I said, because rats are so mechanical, it's very set mechanical process for the training of the trainers as well. It's about 3 months.
Oh, okay.
And we have so many quality controls built into all of the work we do. So if we notice, for example, even before the rats go out and do TB or mine action detection live with unknown samples or unknown ground, we test them and make unknown and unknown on samples that we know are positive and negative. And if we see that they're not getting really high indication rates, then we don't use them for the day. And it's the same with the trainers. We have tests like that built in. But in general, it really, if you're someone who can follow directions and likes animals, and we do screen for that with our local trainers and local rat handlers. It's really not a super difficult job, I'd say. It can be tedious, but it's not something that isn't very easily kind of mastered, I guess.
Right. Andy, you ready to move to Mozambique?
I want to sign up right now.
Yeah.
He's good to go. Well, thank you very much for taking the time out to talk to us about this. Like I said, it's a fantastic program. Where can people go to find out more about APOPO?
Sure. So, go to opopo.org, and there's plenty of information there. It's apopod.org. And also, we have a very active Facebook page with a great social media manager that if you love little rodents and little animals, and love pictures of them, you'll be in heaven, I think, looking at our page every day. But we also educate, we try to educate and entertain at the same time on the Facebook page. And then, of course, you can actually adopt a rat virtually.
Nice.
So for $7 a month, you can go online and get a what we call a gamified experience, where you can actually choose if your rat's a mine detection or TB detection rat. And then you get a bunch of stories sent to you that sort of mimic what a real rat would go through in the field.
Do you get a stat sheet of how much they've cleared or how many they...
Well, it's not an actual real rat because that created a lot of logistical problems, but we do talk about things like how much impact we've had, etc.
I was hoping for like a little baseball card.
General, yeah. I mean, there's
mind scratch off.
there's I mean, that might be something that we do more in the future, but for now, with our capacity, this virtual rat system both educates and gives us some good streams of income, which is important. And I also should say, I mean, we just actually last week got our official 501c3 status.
Oh, nice.
So if people are looking to give tax
Donate,
free
yes.
in the U.S., that should be set up quite soon. Right now, we're just going through the logistical processes of getting all our payment systems integrated. Very boring stuff, but look for that in a month or two if you would like to make a more substantial donation. Even the adoptions at that point, though, too, should be tax deductible.
Yeah, no, what a fantastic idea and organization. For those of you listening out there, I definitely recommend that you give to this. The money is already, there. The proof is there. You've saved so many lives already, and this has so many amazing applications. Definitely a go-getter project. So thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you guys. It was an excellent show. My first interview ever from the back of a car in New York City.
We gotta make it work, man.
I'll never forget it.
We're pressed for time. We gotta make it work.
That's a really great spot. Stop.
This guy.
It's okay. We're fine. We're not in a rush.
Not holding up traffic or anything.
We're holding up traffic or doing an interview or anything.